6.1 patch notes. Before we dive into that, I just want to explain, like, I will be coming out with the gear set reviews for a lot of the sets that I find super interesting. I'll be starting that this week. Sorry, I had a lot of PTS issues last week where I kept, you know, just disconnecting, and it was getting frustrating, and I didn't want to stay on the PTS any longer. I'll try and, you know, make my way through those for those of you guys that are interested in those sorts of things. But yeah, there will be a lot of rapid fire videos coming this week. There's a lot of sets to go over. I'm not going to go over all of them, just the ones that I find interesting, but that's for a different day. Today we were talking about the changes they did for 6.1.1. This is week 2 of the patch notes for, what is it? Is it Stonethorn? Stonethorn. Okay. So we'll just scroll through it. We'll get to the PTS stuff as it pertains to all of that. Combat abilities. Fixed an issue where abilities that cost health and dealt damage would fail to be incorporated in a target dummy's damage per second calculation reports. Okay. Fixed an issue where abilities that granted slotted passive bonuses, such as Werewolf Transformation, could apply at incorrect times. All right. Dragonite, Draconic Power, Dragon Blood. Coagulating Dragon Blood increased the base healing of this ability by approximately 12% to ensure it's closer in line with other heals, such as Breath of Life. With this new value, the heal for coagulating should be slightly weaker than these heals, Breath of Life, Blood Sacrifice, while above 50% health, but slightly stronger than them while below 50% health. The deviation in healing effectiveness will be between 0 and 16.5%. I think this is a great change. I did a video... Oh man, I want to say it was like 6 months ago, and what I did, I'll provide a link in the description for it if you guys want to see it. But long story short, I put the same build on all classes with burst heals: Magicka Necromancer, Magicka DK, Mag Sork, and Magic Templar. I put the burst heal on all of them, and Dragon Blood was severely underperforming in comparison. And it's not that these burst heals need to be the same thing and they need to have the same costs or anything like that, but when you compare Dragon's Blood to something like Honor of the Dead, you know, at the time when Honor of the Dead was really nice and you got the cost decrease, it was like, why is coagulating so bad, you know, in comparison? And so I think this makes a lot of sense. I'll be interested to see where it is this next patch, but I think a buff to Dragon's Blood was much needed, and, you know, I think it's good for the game that, you know, when you're fighting outnumbered as a DK, you can actually self-heal. Because, I mean, self-heals offensively are very nice on a Dragon Knight, you know, with Burning Embers and all those other sorts of things, but when you're outnumbered and you don't have a solid burst heal and you get defiled, it's just like, good game, you're dead. Necromancer, Frozen Colossus, fixed an issue where the damage from this ability could be dodged despite being a player-sourced area of effect attack. I did not know that. Werewolf, attempting to ride a group mount while in Werewolf Transformation will not generate the proper error message. Okay. Dreamer's Mantle and Draugr's Heritage. Fixed an issue where these sets knockback and secondary procs could desync from one another happening at different time frames. All right. Fixed an issue where the knockback from these sets would not also stun more than one target affected, allowing others to slide around as if they are masters of the conga line. That sounds like fun. All right, so new Moon Acolyte. Reduce the weapon and spell damage granted from the set's 5-piece bonus to 401, down from 481. This is done to make up for the fact that the resource cost increase penalty can be easily alleviated in group settings by having allies supply you with sets or synergies. So this set has been the #1 set in PvP. It's a lot more dominant on stamina classes than it is on Magicka, but I have used New Moon successfully on like my Mag DK and my Magicka Templar. My current Magic Templar build is running New Moon Acolyte. It was last patch also. It's a very, very good set. It's very nice. And so it does make sense that this is getting reduced because it is a flat damage amount and it also can buff your healing. You get to double dip in this. And so it makes sense that, to me, it makes sense that sets like Sword Singer, Swamp Raider, Morag Tongue, War Maiden, you know, those that provide like spell or weapon damage to specific things, they don't buff your healing, so they should do a little bit more damage, you know? So I think this makes sense that this is getting adjusted. I know a lot of people are going to get really upset about this one because, you know, everybody's running New Moon right now, and they're going to be like, well, why do I do this? Honestly, without testing, and I will go and test it at some point, but without testing, I would say that this set just comes down in line with like Spriggans and Titanborn and the other damage sets. You know, you're still going to get weapon damage. It's still going to buff your healing. It's still going to be good. It's just not going to be the clear cut, like best across the board for like just about every stam class and some mag class in the game. So this is what makes sense. It does make sense to me. I know a lot of people aren't going to be upset, aren't going to be happy about it. Same thing with the Fury adjustments, but yeah. Torg's Pact reduced the bonus enchantment potency to 45% down from 90% since this bonus can apply to both your enchantments. So they said last patch that or last week that this was an error, and it is 45%. Honestly, guys, for those of you guys that don't know, I was running Torg's Pact on my Magic Necromancer last patch when it was at 30%, and it's very good. Torg's Pact is a very powerful set on a few different classes or different build types. It getting buffed to 45% makes it a lot more appealing. So this is, once again, going to be a very solid set. Dungeon and Arena sets, Elemental Precision, reduce the bonus critical damage taken from this set stack to 5% per, down from 6% per. This is the one where you hit with Fire, Frost, or Lightning, you get 5% more crit damage, and it's a debuff on the enemy, and everybody that hits them can do that critical damage. It was looking like a very, very powerful PvE set, you know, as like a buff set. It's also looking like a pretty powerful small group play set. I will do a gear set review on this because I'm actually pretty excited about that type of set. But yeah, Spell Power Cure, reduce the duration of the major courage granted from the set to 5 seconds, down from 10 seconds, to reinforce the need to constantly heal your allies, getting them to full health and ensuring they stay topped off at all times. Okay, we'll look at Spell Power Cure. Unleash Terror, this is the new gap closer set. It's already getting adjustments. Adjust the set to persist for 10 seconds, up from 5 seconds. Reduce the damage to ensure the DPS remain relatively the same while lowering the burst damage it provided. So I will be doing videos on the proc sets, and we could talk about them a little bit more. This makes sense to spread out this damage because it was, I want to say, without really having a build on, I had like a 25 to 30k tooltip for this. Over 5 seconds was ridiculous. It lasts for 10 seconds. It also applies to gap closers. You know, there's no cooldown. If you hit somebody with Stampede, you get the AoE ground ability. It hits everybody in that area with Stampede. They all get this dot. If you leap on a pile, they all get the dot. If you streak over a group of people, streak counts as a gap closer. They all get this effective dot. It was going to be the most powerful dot proc set in the game. You know, even more powerful than Venomous Smite, in my opinion, and Venomous Smite is pretty ridiculous. So adjusting it for 10 seconds over 5 seconds is a good change because it's going to be a lot less bursty. It's going to be just more sustained pressure. I would say that in general, not just Unleash Terror, but I do think all of the proc sets need to get adjusted a little bit. I think they all need to come down. I'll go into that more, but yeah, with Malakath and all that, and just how proc sets coincide with other damage abilities, you're just able to stack multiple cooldowns worth of abilities, whether it's a damage over time effect or a burst ability, all within one global cooldown. Like with this, for instance, with Unleash Terror, just hypothetically as an example, if you crit rush with a Maelstrom 2H with Unleash Terror, and you hit them with that, you will have the Stampede AoE ground dot. You will also have the Maelstrom dot, and then you'll have this dot, and you hit one ability, and you have access to all those things all at the same time. And that's what proc sets do. And so I know that they want to buff proc sets to give them a standardization of damage, and it makes sense that they want to make them a little bit more competitive, because in CP PvP they're not as prominent. But if you're buffing everything up to like Venomous Smite levels, I would say even Venomous Smite's a little bit too strong in CP PvP. You know, for how they work and how they function and how they can just stack in with global cooldowns, I think they make sense to be reduced a little bit more. I'll go into this in more detail in later videos. I'm going to do some testing on the PTS this week if it works properly. I'll try to stream it as well if it works properly, and you know, we can check that out. And if you guys remain unconvinced after that, you know, nothing much else to say. So let's move on. Mythic Items, Thracian Stranglers, increase the duration of each stack to 10 minutes to make them essentially permanent while fixing some bugs with actual permanent stacks. Note, this set is currently undergoing some additional changes, which are not yet complete. We plan to increase the maximum stack amount from 20 to 50, allowing the set to stack up to a maximum of 2,000 weapon and spell damage, but with a 50% reduction in healing and shield efficiency and 50% increased damage taken. This should make the maximum power of the set unattainable to reach by multiple players in trial settings. At the moment, these stacks are also not being removed on death. These changes and issues will be fixed in a future PTS patch. Okay, sounds good. This set was originally created to be a risk-reward set that inflicted you with such a high penalty that despite the power potential it offered, attaining it would be something you seldom want to keep. After monitoring much of the set's performance and metrics after Greymore launched, we noticed the overall goal of people using the set was to sit at max stats for as long as possible and never really think about dumping them. The issues behind this stem from the fact that it offered so much damage that even if their character did die, they'd rather try again than not try at all. During this PTS cycle, we found a much healthier maximum of the set that still offers a staggering amount of power if you can capitalize, but with even more aggressive penalties to hopefully reinforce a sense of looming dread when you try and reach the cap. Additionally, we saw this set being used by far too many players in trials, which led to an unhealthy balance between magic and stamina. We've rectified the latter by adding in the addition of weapon damage, but we still don't want the set being ran by 8+ damage dealers. Last week with the first PTS patch, we attempted to make this impossible by making stacks last 30 seconds, but it came with the trade-off that the set now introduced a new layer of difficulty, time and stack management. We heard that overall it was simply too much for the set. We've toned it back and increased the duration to 10 minutes, which we can still address further if need be to remove some of that stress of needing to constantly live in battle and get kills. This change would have allowed the set to be ran again in trials with relative ease for non-progression groups, so we needed to find a new way to prevent it from being ran all over the place. Okay, before I read it further, developer comments are fantastic. They used to do them all the time. They don't do them as much anymore. This helps so much. I know this is a lot of work to go through all these different changes, but it's so nice to see why they chose what they chose. You know, like, all this is just saying like, hey, we listened to the community. We provided this change last week. We heard that this was difficult for this, and this reason. We agree. This is why we made these changes. People aren't going to necessarily agree with, you know, they might not agree with the 10-minute cap or 2,000 or the 50%, like whatever the exact changes are, but at least you can understand where they're coming from with all of this effort that they put into here. It's a lot less complaining that you'll see on the forums for this reason. There's just a lot less questions to ask. And I think this is fantastic. I wish they would go more into developers' comments like they did right here. As mentioned above, in a future PTS patch, we'll be increasing the maximum number of stacks from 20 to 50, as well as amping up the penalties from the original 40% pre-PTS to 50%. With both these changes, it will ensure it will be much harder for multiple users to all reach maximum stack count of the set in trial environment, as the number of available kills is limited to the number of enemies inside, and the increased threat will make you think twice about keeping it active all the time. With these changes, we're hoping to still see the set being used in such areas as dungeons, arenas, and PvP, but hoping to see it far less frequently in trials. As a closing note, we'll be monitoring our effectiveness of Kiss Curse or risk versus reward sets better in the future, and trying to make penalties that are harder to bypass when in group settings to ensure we don't have another repeat of Thracian's release. Okay. PvP source, meritorious service, increase the armor from the set to 3540, up from the incorrect 3450. Okay. Ravager, fix an issue where the set did not activate off of armor reducing sources such as crystal weapon. Okay. Vestments of Olorime, reduce the duration of the area of effect that grants major courage from the set and the perfected version to 5 seconds down from 10 seconds. Okay, probably the same as Spell Power Cure. Increase the duration of the major courage grant from touching the area effect to 20 seconds up from 10 seconds. Maybe not. With these adjustments, the set will now better reinforce the need to coordinate with your allies and quickly capitalize on the effect, but better reward you for doing so. All right. Item traits, Bloodthirsty. Increase the bonus weapon and spell damage this trait grants against targets to a maximum of 350 per trait, up from 250. This is to make up for the fact the trait does not inherit percent increases to these stats such as brutality or sorcery. Interesting. I did not know that that existed. I definitely want to test Bloodthirsty this patch because these changes look nice. I don't know if I'm going to incorporate them because it doesn't buff your healing, and healing's at a spot to where, you know, it'd be tough to get by with this, but yeah, on classes where you need that little bit extra weapon, extra execute damage, this could be pretty nice. This could be pretty nice. I can't remember if that's it. That is it. So that's the end of the patch notes. Like I said, I will have other videos coming out this week. I will attempt to do PTS stuff on Twitch. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you guys want to come check it out, ask some questions, and we'll try some stuff out. If it doesn't work, you know, I can't do it, and I'll just attempt to do it in my free time when I'm so able to do it. But yeah, more videos will be coming in that department as it pertains to, you know, testing gear and interesting stuff and stuff that I found out while testing. So that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide it in the section below. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.